Christian here from the Menifee campus, and listen, I'm so glad you're joining us today. It's gonna be special. We're jumping into a new series, and it's called Marked. You're not gonna wanna miss it. Today, we get to hear from my good friend Scotty, so let's get to that now.
Slide through your church, we gon' turn that thing up. Hit the smees with the team, and I'm tryna show the pastor. On the under, he gon' ask me how to do it after. Up where we headed, my soul got the glow embedded. We taking over, I bet it. I'ma see it cause I said it. If we don't, I'll admit it. But I can see it's not winning. It's back to back, never ending. Got an unlimited engine. I'ma show out. I'ma show out. Stop acting like you don't know what I'm about. I'ma show out. Throw it up or you get thrown out. Every time that the click go out, I'ma show out, I'ma glow out, I'ma show out.
What's going on, SCUY? Scotty from the Woodcrest campus, and I'm so excited to be joining you guys today as we kick off a brand new series. But first, how many of you guys just love shoes? For me, I'm not like a big sneaker guy, so you won't see me wearing Jordans or anything like that, but I love tennis shoes. And some of the tennis shoes that I've really fallen in love, because if you know me at all, like I love Vans. Like Vans till I die. This isn't a sponsorship or nothing like that. I just rep them. I love them. They're great. But I saw these Nikes, the mid blazers, and most of you, I see you guys midweek wearing those. They've kind of hopped onto the scene. They look super, super fresh. And can I just show you a pair of my new Nike mid blazers? Because they are super sick. I waited until midnight for these bad boys to drop. And so, dude, can you just, check these out. Are these not the sickest shoes in the world? Like, dude, mid blazers, finally, $110. Waited till midnight for these to drop. Raise your hand right now if you got a pair of these bad boys, right? None of you are probably raising your hand, right? Because these aren't mid blazers. Like these are, if you could get it in the camera. I got them on my feet, right? But isn't it funny how, it's just so obvious when something claims to be something, but it really isn't, right? These are actually Vans. These are some of my Vans that I rep, my skate highs, and they kind of have similarities to the Blazers, and I taped some ghetto Nike pieces of paper. The Nike sign's even going backwards on this one. But it's easy to catch something when it claims to be something that it isn't. And why do we think in our own life that people don't notice that with us? Right? For the Christians in the room, when we claim to be Christians, but we do not live the way that Jesus has called us to live, why do we think that people will catch on? Why do we think that people won't recognize us as these Vans skates highs and they see us as Nike mid blazers, right? It's fake. It's a knockoff. You see, when you become a Christian, you should be marked. When you say yes to following Jesus, something different should change in your life. It should be evident that Jesus has done something radically different in your own life. And we're kicking off this brand new series called Marked, and because here's the deal. We live in a culture that is not for God, and oftentimes it's hard to even determine who the real Christians are. And I don't say this to guilt trip anyone. I don't say this to say, man, you're a terrible Christian, but oftentimes we are just like these Vans. We try to dress ourselves up and claim to be something that we aren't, but the world around us sees that we are not what we claim to be. We have a lot of people claiming to be Christians or followers of Jesus, but their life just simply doesn't reflect that at all. Now, Jesus said something interesting in the book of John. It's one of the early Gospels, and there's Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John, and he says something about his followers. And he says this in John 15, verse 5. He says, I am the vine, you are the branches. Whoever abides in me, and I in him, bears much fruit. For apart from me, you can do nothing. What essentially Jesus is saying is when you follow him, that's that fancy word when he says, if you abide in me, he's saying if you follow me, if you actually pursue a relationship with me, your life will reflect it and others will notice you for it. When he says you will bear much fruit, he's not talking about apples, he's not talking about oranges, he's talking about a healthy tree, right? When it grows, oranges will be produced on an orange tree. On an apple tree, when it grows healthy, it will produce apples. And same thing with us as Christians and believers. When we are healthy and in a good relationship with Jesus, our life should naturally reflect that we are marked by him. But we have too many fakes out there, right? Too many fakes. Fake shoes. I made some fake shoes. I'm going to try to sell them on eBay later, right? Fake shoes. People are trying to get away with fake sports cards. I was watching this show on Netflix called Pawn Stars the other day. I don't know if you've ever seen it, but people come in and they realize that a coin or something they brought in that they thought was genuine is actually fake. We got Finstas out there, fake Instagram accounts. I'm talking to some of you in the room. I know, I've seen your Finstas. And we got fake people out there, right? People who claim to be something that they aren't. And you could probably think of a few people that come to mind. Maybe a few people that you interact with on your sports team, in your class, in your family, who claim to be something that they aren't. They're just a knockoff pair of Vans trying to be Nikes. But when you are marked by Jesus, it should be evident. Like that's the main point of the series, is when you are marked by God, it should be evident to people. So the question I have for you tonight, and you're going to take this in a group as well, is are you marked? Like, are you marked? If you have raised your hand and you said, I want to follow Jesus, something should have changed in your life. Like, are you marked? And the second question is it evident that you are marked? Do people notice? Does your life show change from the way you were before you met Jesus to today? Is it evident in your life? Look, 2020 was such a whirlwind of a year, right? It spun out of control. Some of it leaked into 2021. Some of you are facing that right now. Some people face loneliness. Some people face depression. Some people face shortage on toilet paper and all of the things, right? It was crazy. But here's the deal. Our world is broken and in need of something more. I think some of you in the room could agree with that. I think some of you in the room could agree that, man, 2020 revealed that you want something more. You need something more. The loneliness is getting too hard for you. The depression is getting too hard for you. The relationships and the gossip and all of these things are getting too hard for you. And I think our world is coming to this realization that the things of this world are not going to satisfy us the way that we think that we think they will. And I believe that our world, I believe that some of you today watching are looking for something more, looking for more hope. And the hope specifically I believe you're looking for is hope in Jesus. I believe the brokenness in our world needs Jesus. I believe that some of you today need Jesus. But for those who are following Jesus, I want to encourage you for a minute. Whether you're in junior high, whether you're in high school, you have an opportunity to make an impact. Jesus wants to bring about change and redeem the brokenness of this world. Jesus wants to redeem the loneliness. Jesus wants to redeem the depression. Jesus wants to redeem the broken parts of what people have experienced. Maybe in 2020, maybe even before that, maybe even today. Jesus wants to redeem that. He wants to reconcile that. And you want to know how he does it? Through those he has marked. It's the ones who have said, man, I am following Jesus. I've spent time with Jesus, and I want to bring about change. Jesus brings about redemption through the people he has marked. Look, remember how Jesus in John 15 said, if you abide in me, you will bear much fruit? What he means by bearing fruit is, again, your life will reflect that. When you spend time with him, when you pursue him, when you are in community, when you are in worship, when you attend the weekends, when you are reading your Bible, when you are praying, there should be evidence and an overflow of what God is doing in your life, and people should experience that. And here's what the Apostle Paul says in the New Testament. If you don't know anything about the Apostle Paul, let me tell you, this dude was not a church person. He was a very, very religious person. When the Jesus movement started, he wanted to stop it. He didn't want to see it continue. And so he was helping persecute Christians who were sharing this good news about Jesus. But then he met Jesus and his life was changed forever. This is what the Apostle Paul had to say in Galatians chapter 5, verse 19. He says, the acts of the flesh are obvious. Right? The acts of the flesh, what we desire, the way that we want to live are obvious. And he gives a list for us. He says sexual immorality, impurity, debauchery, idolatry, witchcraft, hatred, discord, jealousy, fits of rage, selfish ambition, dissensions, factions, and envy, drunkenness, orgies, and the like. He goes on this extensive list of when you follow your desires, when you follow your passions, this is what it leads to. But then he continues and he says, when you do those things, this is what happens to you. He says, I warn you, as I did before, that those who live like this will not inherit the kingdom of God. What Paul is essentially saying is you may claim to be a Christian, maybe you don't know Jesus, and when you give into your natural desires, when you give into your tendencies, when you want to live for yourself, it only leads to separation from God. But then he gives some encouragement, right? He just punched you in the gut, now he wants to give you a hug, a nice little cozy hug, right? And he goes on to encourage you saying, but if you follow Jesus and seek him, here's what should be evident in your life. This is how you know you are marked. And he says in verse 22, but the fruit of the Spirit is love, joy, peace, forbearance, kindness, goodness, faithfulness, gentleness, and self-control. These are some of the attributes that should show if you are marked by Jesus. This should be the overflow. And I want to speak to some of you in the room right now. Maybe you're not a church person. Maybe you don't have a relationship with Jesus. I think you could agree with me that our world needs a little more love. Our world needs a little more joy. Our world needs a little more peace, especially peace, right? When the media is just throwing fear at us, when social media is throwing gossip and fear, we need some peace, right? I think you could agree with me in that. And as a Christian, these should be evident in our life. And the three we're actually going to be taking a look at and talking about today is love, joy, and peace. We're going to be talking about whether these are evident in your life and if people actually notice and experience that in your life. Because these are some of the main ingredients of being marked, right? Have you ever, gone to Chick-fil-A and you ordered a chicken sandwich without pickles? Or maybe you went to McDonald's or some cheeseburger place and you're like, we can't have mustard because mustard's of the devil. It's disgusting and I will fight you on that, right? But then you get your food back and on your Chick-fil-A sandwich you got pickles and on your cheeseburger you got mustard. You take a bite into that thing and you're like, you notice right away, right? Your taste buds aren't happy. You're disappointed. Now you're cranky. Now you're grumpy, right? In the same way, these are some of the main ingredients of being marked. People will notice. Like they will notice that you are claiming to be something that you are not. Like your life will not reflect that. And in the same way, when love, joy, and peace aren't present, people will notice that. So today we're going to take a deeper look into love, joy, and peace, and how does that play out in our life? How do we know if it's evident in our life? How do we actually live that out? But before we do that, I want to simply define what those are so that way you have something to take with you into your time in group. So let's start with love. Love is simply this idea that our love for God and others is just an overflow of what God has done for us. Like the way we love God and the way we love others should come from a response of how God first loved us, right? In your brokenness, in the areas where you've messed up, God still sent his son Jesus to die for you on a cross so you could be made right with him. We love because of how he first loved us. That's how we love other people. The second thing is joy, right? Joy is happiness that is not dependent on our circumstances. Look, I mentioned 2020 was hard. You may be going through a difficult situation. Maybe your parents are going through a divorce. Maybe your parents are always fighting. Maybe you're in a household where your parents are always angry. Maybe you're going through a bad relationship. Maybe you feel lonely. Maybe you feel depressed. Joy only comes from God. This kind of joy only comes from God that is not dependent on our circumstances. Look, I'm going to be real with you for a second. I just found out a few weeks ago, my dad, it wasn't on any of our radars that he was diagnosed with stage 4 lung cancer. He's healthy, he works out, and here's the deal. And it's going to sound counterproductive. You're going to be like, you're weird, Scotty, this doesn't make sense. But my dad has been finding joy in this season because his joy and happiness is not dependent on his circumstance. It's dependent on who he is in Jesus and knowing that God is in control. That's what the joy Paul is talking about. That should be evident in our life. And then the third thing is peace. A life of peace is safe and secure, both physically and mentally, because of Jesus. We could have peace knowing that Jesus is in control, that Jesus is still on the throne. Although COVID shut down our school systems, although COVID made us work at home, although COVID may have taken some lives, although that depression has come, although that these circumstances, although that cancer has come to my family, I could have peace because I know that Jesus is still in control, he's still on the throne, and he still has a plan and purpose for our lives. And when we get closer to God in our relationship with him, these attributes will naturally pour out of us as Christians. And I believe that's what's going to bring about change in our world. is when we actually abide in Jesus, when we pursue Him, and these become an overflow of our lives, and people notice that we are marked. I believe that redemption will take place in your schools. I believe it'll take place in your families. I believe it'll take places in your choir room, on your sports team, because people will notice something different, and we have something better to offer them. So again, I want to leave you with these questions as you go into group is, are you marked? Like, are you marked? And is it evident that you are marked? Or are you like the Van Skate Highs, right? Claiming to be something that you're not. Are you marked, and is it evident by other people? Because God has marked you, and we should be living in a way that reflects Jesus. So as you go to group, we're going to begin to unpack love. We're going to unpack joy and peace more, and how to live it out in our everyday lives as followers of Jesus. But before we do that, I'm going to pray for you, and then you guys can go into group. God, we just thank you that you are a God who cares for us, God who loves us, God who sees the brokenness in our world, and you want to bring about that change for those you have marked. God, I pray for those who are watching that have been claiming to be something that they aren't. God, that today would be the day that they would really wrestle and be real with themselves and move to a place of being in relationship with you, to where these things will be evident in their life. God, that their communities, that their schools would experience love, joy, and peace, because it's just a natural overflow of their time with you. So God, we thank you, we love you, and we lift all those things up in your name. Amen.
Man, Scotty asked the question, are you marked? Are you marked as a Christian, or are you just claiming to be? That is something we all have to ask ourselves today. But listen, the best way to ask ourselves, the best way to figure that out is in groups. That's why we do groups here at SCY. And so if you're not in a group, you can get connected to one right now by texting groups to the number on the screen. Do it, you're not gonna regret it. We love you, SCY fam, and I'll see you hopefully next week.